Do you want to play the role that lets you display your awesome prowess at League? Do you want to play a role that's so reliant on your own abilities that if any other role interacts with you, it's considered cheating and not actually your fault if you lose? Do you want to play the role that simultaneously has the least and most impact on the game? Because yes, you can come out of the lane being 20-0 and still fail to do anything in a teamfight, but you also can come out of lane 0-4 yet still solo kill the 10-kill ADC? Do you enjoy looking at big, strong, handsome, muscular men and never looking at women ever again? Well, let me introduce you to the wonderful? I don't think top lane mains would enjoy me calling it wonderful, so I guess I'll just call it the role of top lane. Where you can bet that no matter what you do, depending on whether it ended up going well or not, you can simply employ the trick of saying top diff if it went well, or blame it on someone else if it went poorly, and no one will even bat an eye. Welcome to a terrible guide to League of Legends.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift.
If you want to play a role that every other role fears because the mental stability of it is dependent on how much the person types, and strike genuine terror into every ADC main because you can int all of laning phase but still murder them, then look no further than the top lane. Top lane is the lane for the true gamers of League of Legends, the people who want a true 1v1 experience in a team game that's 5v5, because this lane has people who believe that grouping, playing around objectives, and actually trying to win the game is for everyone else and not for them. Because clearly what's more important is proving to your team and the enemy team that you're better than the enemy top laner by absolutely destroying them with facts and logic, and if you somehow lose your lane, then it definitely wasn't your fault and it was actually the junglers, or the mid laners, or the supports, or whoever else you can blame on because you're too good to actually lose your lane unless it was somebody else's fault. And due to where top lane is positioned on the map, it makes sense why it's become synonymous with the idea of being a 1v1 role. Unlike jungle, you're not asked to constantly be interacting with the other roles in the game. Unlike mid lane, you don't have the same ability to roam around the map unless you're willing to use multiple long cooldowns to get to the roam and then get back to lane due to where you're positioned. And unlike bot lane, you're laning 1v1 and not 2v2, or 2v1 depending on when the support roams. Combine all of this with the fact that the more important objective monsters on the top side of the map, like Rift Herald and Baron Nashor, don't spawn until either near the end of laning phase or until after it's already done. Meanwhile, dragons that are important for the whole game start spawning while laning phase is still in its infancy, and top lane becomes a role that the other four roles can oftentimes ignore due to not needing to prioritize the objectives up there. Jesus Christ, I'm actually giving advice. I need a joke to even all of this out. Top lane mains are mad 'cause they're bad. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, I know, I'm a comedic genius. Thank you. Top laners are also in an interesting situation because their role has probably the second highest amount, right behind jungle in my opinion, of champions that have agency. A champion with high agency basically has more individual impact on how the game goes, like how Taylor Swift has control over every white woman that exists, while lower agency champions are more team reliant. This results in the majority of top laners being either fighters who have a wide array of differentness in their own class, and tanks who can also deal a good amount of damage. The lane has another popular class of champions who we will not be talking about because they're weird people, and I'm certain that most top lane mains will agree with me that they don't deserve to be recognized as true top laners. Finally, I'd argue that top lane has the biggest amount of gimmick champions! Due to the aforementioned 1v1 nature of the role, champions that shouldn't be able to normally work in the role do, mostly because top laners refuse to learn how to play against those champions because top laners only recognize you as an actual player if you're playing a big, strong, muscular, handsome man who could pick you up and... Oh, what was I talking about? Not to mention that gimmick champions like Rengar or Warwick in top lane thrive off of the fact that you don't know how to play around them, and because of the relative isolation compared to the rest of the map, those champions can get away with their gimmicks a lot easier. This turns top lane into a melting pot of a lane where just about anyone can go up there and find success, but unless you're playing as a true top laner, then you'll never be respected because you need to remember that this role is all about expressing your skill, and if you have to rely on any champion that's not a true top laner, then you're clearly not skillful enough to even be playing the role. Because remember, this is about the 1v1. It doesn't matter if you win the game, as long as you win the lane, you can at least type about how better top loses and blame your teammates for the loss. And if for some reason you do lose lane, you're still able to claim that it wasn't your fault and that better top loses because the enemy laner must have gotten help from their jungler or mid laner or paid your jungler to int you or any number of other reasons that you lost that are definitely not your fault. This is kind of the MO of most top laners, and it's something that you need to understand because when that metaphorical shit is going to hit the fan, you need to be ready to make your escape and quickly blame it on the nearest person to make sure that no one suspects that it was you who threw it. You also need to understand that everything that you do is simultaneously the most pointless and the most important thing in the game. Let me explain. You see, due to the major influence that dragons have had over the game for years now, both mid and bot lane have had a bigger influence on the game than top lane because if you can get those lanes ahead, then securing game-defining objectives becomes much easier. So, as a top laner, your individual macro game doesn't matter as much due to how much harder it is for you to get to those lanes and then return to top lane in a timely fashion so that you don't lose your whole tower because for some reason, every top laner is a split-pushing machine that can just destroy towers in 2 seconds if you ever leave lane. However, your micro game is absolutely necessary. If you know how to CS properly, not die often, and support your team, then you're going to be a monster because you're playing a champion that just needs to not be behind to be ahead on most other champions due to the itemization that most top laners have, as well as the gold income and XP that you get compared to the other roles. Now, do most top laners do this? I think most of them would prefer to just coin flip the lane and then blame it on the jungler if it doesn't work out. I know I'm putting out a lot of slander on these players at the moment, but honestly, it's a little justified. Let me run through a list of deranged things that top lane mains said to me while I was getting footage for this video. I was called a noob because the enemy Yone solo killed me after I hadn't backed for 3 solo kills against him. I was called a PDF file by a Wukong because I was playing Garen. Keep in mind that the reason was that he couldn't use his kit terribly and still get a solo kill on me. He used his clone to get to me half the time, missed one of his 2 ults half the time, and then called me a PDF file because I could kill him instead of him being able to kill me. If Fiora said, better top loses after never having a ward down in the river bush, I had a control ward there for like 5 minutes, and then proceeded to die to 3 separate jungle ganks. I play in high diamond low masters, by the way. And Urgot called me I honestly don't even know if I should say this on YouTube, but here we go. A bastard whose sibling parents should have aborted me for playing like the cancer patient I am, because I built Tobbies and Warden's Mail as Ornn. And finally, an Aatrox called me a loser after he received 2 jungle ganks to kill me, and after I called him a loser back when I solo killed him, he complained that I received help from my jungler for 2 ganks as well, and somehow that made me more of a loser because he, quote unquote, didn't need the help. I wish I was making any of this up, but your average top lane main deserves to be locked into a mental asylum for the rest of their life, so I doubt people will not believe this. This is probably one of the least enjoyable parts of top lane, because regardless of whether or not you're doing well, the enemy top laner will act superior to you. It doesn't matter if they're 0-10 or 10-0, somehow they're still the better player in their mind, even if they never solo killed you, never got your tier 1 tower, and have the worst kill participation on their team. The mental gymnastics that top laners go through to prove to themselves that they're the best players in the game despite all of the evidence that points to it being the complete opposite is honestly more impressive than seeing actual gymnasts go through their routines. Now, for all of the angry top lane mains who are not typing in my comment section because you either A, have a sense of humor, or B, understand that half of these jokes are directed towards Aurelia, Riven, Fiora, and Jax players, then I have to say congratulations for not taking a joke video too seriously. I mean, come on, there's a reason it's called a terrible guide to League of Legends. However, I'll close by saying this about top lane. Even though you have one of the most isolating, frustrating due to the isolation, most toxic player bases, downright abhorrent champion pools, and god complexes... Where was I going with this? Oh, right. You are frustrating to deal with toxic, downright abhorrent, god complex players, and we wouldn't have you any other way. Plus, if we got rid of the role, it'd be a lot harder to figure out who likes to touch little kids. Thank you everybody so much for watching this video. My name is TheTarians, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go leave a comment down below telling me which role you want to see a terrible guide about next, and then while you're down there, go hit that subscribe button to be updated whenever any of my new content comes out, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye!